Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of EDH gameplay brought to you by Affinity for Commander. My name is Martin.
And my name is Alex.
This week we have made two major changes to the way that we record videos. Firstly, we will now be recording from an over-the-head angle, meaning that you guys will be able to see cards that are played much more clearly. Secondly, we are now recording 4-player games, which has been our number one request since the channel began. With that out of the way, let's get straight into the game.
My commander is Ghave, Guru of Spores. I keep an opening hand of Birds of Paradise, Den Protector, Rishkar, Pima Renegade, Ravos Soul Tender, Mana Confluence, and 2 planes.
My commander is Edgar Markov. I keep a hand containing Indulgent Aristocrat, Bruna, Liberator of Malakia, Go for the Throat, Path of Ancestry, Command Tower, a Mountain, and a Plains.
Chris is playing Macias the Mind Razor as his commander. He keeps an opening hand consisting of the Locust God, Mystical Tutor, Howling Mine, Alhammarit's Archive, Bloodstained Mire, Temple of Epiphany, and Reliquary Tower.
And last but not least, Sarah's commander is Bruna, Light of Alabaster. She keeps an opening hand of Soul Ring, Azorius Signet, Lifelink, Diplomatic Immunity, Stratus Walk, New Benalia, and an island. I win the dice roll and start the game off by playing a Commands Tower. I then cast Indulgent Aristocrat, triggering Edgar's Eminence ability and creating a 1/1 vampire token. I then pass the turn.
In her turn, Sarah plays an island. She then casts Soul Ring and uses it to play Azorius Signet. Unable to ramp any further, Sarah passes the turn.
Alex plays a Mana Confluence, which he taps to produce a green mana, losing a life. He uses this mana to cast Birds of Paradise, and then passes to Chris.
Chris plays Temple of Epiphany, scrying 1, and keeps the card on top of his library. He then passes turn.
In my turn, I play Path of Ancestry and go to combat. I attack Sarah with both of my creatures, dealing her 2 damage and gaining 1 life from the Aristocrat's lifelink. I then pass.
Sarah plays New Benalia, scrying 1, and putting it on the bottom of her library. She then passes turn.
Alex plays a Command Tower of his own and taps out to play Rishkar, Pima Renegade. This causes him to lose a life from Mana Confluence, and he puts 1/1 counters on both of his creatures using Rishkar's Enter the Battlefield ability. He then passes to Chris.
In his turn, Chris plays a Reliquary Tower, and then taps out to cast Howling Mine. Everybody cheers at the prospect of drawing additional cards, with absolutely no downside, and then Chris passes the turn.
I draw an additional card from Howling Mine, and then play Sulphurous Spring. I cast Bruna, Liberator of Malakia, scrying 1 from the Path of Ancestry. I choose to keep the card on top of my library, and then create a vampire token from Edgar's ability. I go to combat, attacking Sarah with my Aristocrat and Chris with my vampire token. They both take 1 damage and I gain 1 life from the Aristocrat. I then pass to Sarah.
Sarah draws 2 cards and then plays Secluded Step. Unable to do anything else, she passes the turn without casting anything.
Alex draws 2 cards and plays a Plains. He then casts Whip of Erebos, taking another damage from Mana Confluence, and then passes to Chris.
Chris draws 2 cards and then plays Bloodstained Mire. He taps and sacrifices it, losing a life to find Steam Vents. He has the vents enter the battlefield untapped, losing him a further 2 life. Chris then casts Dak Vaden. He uses his -2 ability to steal my Whip of Erebos, and then passes to Martin.
I draw 2 cards and then play Rakdos Guildgate. I then play Anguished Unmaking, losing 3 life to exile Whip of Erebos before anybody gains any life from it. I go to combat and attack Alex with Bruna, Sarah with the Aristocrat, Chris with a vampire, and Dak with the other vampire. Bruna hits first, putting a 1/1 counter on all of my creatures. This causes everyone to take 2 damage, me to gain 2 life, and Dak's loyalty to hit 0. Feeling pretty good, I pass the turn.
Sarah draws 2 cards and then plays Emeria, the Sky Rune. She then casts her commander, Bruna, Light of Alabaster, and then passes turn to me.
Alex draws 2 cards, plays a Plains, and then casts his commander, Ghave, Guru of Spores. This causes him to lose another life from Mana Confluence, which means that he has taken twice as much damage from this one land than he has from creatures so far in the game. He then passes to Chris.
Chris draws 2 cards and plays an island. He casts Spiteful Visions, allowing us to draw an additional card in our draw steps, but dealing us 1 damage for each card that we draw. He then passes turn.
I draw 3 cards and take 3 damage. I play Temple of the False God and then cast Olivia Voldaren. I forget to scry from Path of Ancestry and make another vampire token. I go to combat, attacking Alex with Drana and Chris with everything else. Alex does not block, taking 3 damage and causing Drana's ability to trigger, putting 1/1 counters on all of my attacking creatures. This causes Chris to take 9 damage and I gain 3 life. I then pass the turn.
Sarah draws 3 cards and takes 3 damage. She plays a Hallowed Fountain, losing 2 life so that it can come into play untapped. Sarah then casts Sovereigns of Alara and goes to combat. She attacks Martin with Bruna, searching her library for an aura with the Sovereign's ability. She reveals Mortal Obstinacy and attaches it to Bruna. Sarah then resolves Bruna's ability, enchanting her with Stratus Walk, Lifelink, and Diplomatic Immunity. She asks Martin not to block so that Mortal Obstinacy can destroy Spiteful Visions, and Martin agrees. Martin takes 7 damage and 7 commander damage, and Sarah gains 7 life due to lifelink. True to her word, Sarah sacrifices Mortal Obstinacy to destroy Spiteful Visions, and then passes to me. In her end step, I remove a counter from Ghave and make a 1/1 Saproling token.
Alex draws 2 cards, plays a Plains, and casts Soul Ring. He then casts Ravos Soul Tender and attacks Chris for 5 with Ghave before passing the turn.
Chris draws 2 cards and plays a Swamp. He casts Mind Stone and then casts Rampaging Ferostodon. He then passes the turn, to which Martin responds by casting Go for the Throat, destroying Ferostodon before it causes him any harm.
I draw 2 cards and then cast Yahenni, Undying Partisan. This makes me another vampire token, putting my army of bloodsuckers up to 8 creatures. I play a Swamp and then move to combat. I attack Alex with Drana and the Aristocrat, and Chris with the rest of my creatures. Alex blocks Drana with his Birds of Paradise and the Aristocrat with a Saproling. He then sacrifices the Saproling to Ghave and puts a 1/1 counter on Ravos. In response, I use Olivia's ability twice, dealing 2 damage to Ravos. In response to my response, Alex sacrifices his Birds of Paradise to put another 1/1 counter on Ravos. The stack resolves, Olivia gets 2+1+1 counters, Ravos gets 2+1+1 counters, and Ravos becomes a vampire human cleric. Yahenni also gets 2+1+1 counters, as 2 of Alex's creatures died, and Chris takes the 10 damage from my unblocked creatures. I then pass to Sarah.
Sarah draws 2 cards and plays an island. She casts Dreamstone Hedron, which she swiftly sacrifices to draw 3 cards. Sarah then goes to combat and attacks Martin once more with Bruna. Sovereign's ability triggers and Sarah attaches Spirit Mantle to Bruna. Bruna's ability then triggers and Sarah attaches Moral Obstinacy to her from the graveyard. She also attaches Cartouche of Knowledge, Robe of Mirrors, and Sage's Reverie to Bruna from her hand, making her a 16/16. Given that Bruna has protection from creatures, Martin is unable to block her and takes 16 damage and 16 commander damage. This puts him at commander damage from Bruna at 23, and knocking him out the game. In Sarah's end step, she discards down to 7. I remove a counter from Ghave to create a Saproling token, and Chris casts Mystical Tutor to put Ether Eyes on top of his library.
Alex draws 2 cards and plays Overgrown Tomb untapped, losing him 2 life. He then casts Shamanic Revelations, drawing 4 cards and gaining 12 life. Alex then casts Elspeth, Sun's Champion, using her -3 ability to destroy all of the creatures that are in play except for his Saproling token. He then goes to combat and attacks Sarah with the previously mentioned Saproling token and passes the turn.
Chris draws 2 cards, one of which we know to be Aetherize, and plays a Polluted Delta. He then casts his commander, Nekusar the Mind Razor, and sacrifices his fetch land to put Fetid Pools into play, losing him a life. He then passes to Sarah.
Sarah draws 3 cards and takes 3 damage from Nekusar. She plays a Plains and then recasts her commander. She then passes the turn.
I draw 3 cards and lose 3 life. I then play a Blighted Fen in the hopes that this will discourage Sarah from attacking me. I use Elspeth's +1 ability to create 3 1/1 soldier tokens. After that, I cast Celesnia's Signet and Dem Protector, but not as a morph, causing everyone at the table to tut disapprovingly. I lose a life from tapping Man Confluence and then pass the turn.
In his turn, Chris draws 3 cards and plays an island. He casts Fog Bank, making sure to keep 4 mana available to cast Aetherize if Sarah decides to attack him. He then passes to Sarah.
Sarah draws 3 cards and takes 3 damage. She plays a Plains and casts Bruna, the Fading Light, with no targets available for her ability. With the new Bruna on the stack, I attempt to prevent a space-time paradox by activating Blighted Fen's ability, sacrificing it and forcing Sarah to sacrifice her commander. The new Bruna then resolves, and Sarah casts Chosen by Heliod, targeting Bruna. She then casts Ordeal of Heliod, once again targeting Bruna. She then passes turn.
Alex draws 3 and takes 3 damage. He plays the Forest and casts Sorin, Solemn Visitor. He uses Sorin's +1 ability, giving all of his creatures +1/+0 and lifelink until his next turn. Going to combat, Alex attacks Chris with all of his creatures, and Chris blocks 2 soldiers with his own creatures. Chris takes 7 damage, Alex gains 9 life, and 1 soldier is destroyed. Alex then uses Elspeth's +1 ability to make 3 more soldier tokens, and casts Deathrite Shaman. He then casts Swiftfoot Boots, equips them to Deathrite Shaman, and passes the turn.
Chris draws 3 cards and plays Dragon Skull Summit. He casts Underworld Dreams, doubling the damage caused to myself and Sarah when we draw cards. Chris then casts Alhammarret's Archive and passes to Sarah.
Sarah draws 3 cards and takes 6 damage. She plays an island and then casts Lightning Greaves. She then recasts her commander for the 3rd time and equips the Greaves to her. Sarah then goes to combat and attacks Alex with her commander. Given that Bruna's ability does not target, Sarah is able to equip auras to her even though she has Shroud from Lightning Greaves. Sarah moves the auras enchanting the other Bruna across to her commander and attaches all of the auras from her graveyard to Bruna. This puts a total of 12 auras on Bruna, making her a 23/23 and dealing lethal commander damage to Alex in 1 hit. Sarah gains 23 life and draws 14 cards, losing 28 life from Nekusar and Underworld Dreams as a result of drawing cards. She discards down to 7 and passes the turn to Chris.
Chris draws for his turn and casts Reforge the Soul for its miracle cost. Both he and Sarah discard their hands. Sarah draws 7 cards, causing her to take 14 damage, and Chris draws 14 thanks to Alhammarret's Archive. He then draws 4 remaining cards from Howling Mine and Nekusar, which were doubled by the Archive as well. Chris then plays Temple of the False Gods and casts Words of Wisdom, drawing 4 cards and forcing Sarah to draw a card, taking 2 more damage. He then casts Raider's Wake, which he follows up by casting Windfall, causing both himself and Sarah to discard their hands, Sarah to draw 18 cards and him to draw 36. The combined damage caused by Raider's Wake, Nekusar and Underworld Dreams is enough to reduce Sarah's life total to 0, winning Chris the game.
Well, that's it for this episode. What did you guys think of the new recording angle? If you'd like to see more videos like this one, be sure to like and subscribe to show your support to the channel. Feel free to leave us a comment below and let us know what you think we should do to improve our videos. See you next time.